do this fireplace. It's going to have an arch here, and we'll show how we're going to cut those stones around the arch. It's a fireplace extraordinaire. We're going to hold the stones an inch off the floor right here, because there's going to be some tile go down. So we're going to hold these up 1 inch, or I mean 3/4 of an inch, so tile can go under there. And then we're going to take it to clear to the ceiling. It's about 15 feet high. On this side of the fireplace, there's the fan for the fireplace extraordinaire. So it pulls the air here and blows it out the vents. And there's a blower right here on it that blows the heat out there. Pretty efficient. I really like those. And then there's this firebox here. And we've had them start holding this out about 1.5 inches, but they only went about 3/4. And the reason for that is it got like from here to here, there's about 6 inches. And then right over here, there's hardly anything. It's 1.5 inches. So what the problem that creates is when you're cutting your stones off, then you have a cut edge here real often, because once you put your corner on right here, then it comes over and then you have a cut edge, and from this side of it you'll see that cut edge, and we're trying to hide that. So he's trying to get them to hold this out a little further, but they didn't quite go far enough, so we'll just have to fight it. But, yeah, we'll put a hearthstone in there, and they're gonna have to move those. Our stones probably come out and cover up their switch boxes. Right up here, there's the TV plugs. We'll be cutting around those. We usually just smear this full mortar flat here out to the front of the box, and then just bring our stones and hold them back a little bit. And then the outlet, the switch cover, outlet cover can go over to the edge of the stones. The stones will be held back about 3/4 of an inch from the box, and then the plate, this cover will come about half that distance. Get a nice little reveal around it. Got a bunch of buckets of water because the tap is basically froze, so we had to haul some water in. Got our stone out there. And the stone is Country Ledgestone Echo Ridge. Got our box of corners. Hopefully that's enough. Got a couple of boxes there. And these hearthstones are marsh in color, made by cultured stone. I just stacked a couple of pieces of siding. I usually use whatever I can find on the job to hold up the stone. It needed to be 3/4 of an inch off the floor. So 2 pieces of siding landed just right at 3/4. So that's what we did to hold up our stone. Okay, next we got these hearthstones to do. The distance is right here off the center of the fireplace. Is balancing to where the pieces land good on the edge. So there's not just either a little piece or else a weird sliver somewhere. So what we do is we start this by just putting it in the center and just start stacking them out and see where they end up on the edge. See that it hangs over plenty. So what we'll do is continue to balance this one. Center in the middle, looks like it needs to slide a little bit that way. Just make that side even hang over further. So it would be at 18 1/8 would be center of it. And we just measure 10 from the edge of the stone to center. Okay, so that's centered now. Now what you do is you shift these stones so there's about a 1/2 inch joint. Hold them. Around here. So they're approximately 1/2 inch joints on. And then on this edge, this front edge, you have about 1 inch hanging over. Over an inch. So we want this side to be the same. So what we do is just measure an inch back, an inch. I'm going to go 1.25 inches because that's approximately what it is. So that lands about right there. So we will go, we'll cut it off at about 2.5 inches. But we'll cut it off of this side over here. So we'll cut it right here, 2.5 inches back. And then it'll have the 1 inch overhang here. Okay, the way we do this is we measure over our distance, which was 2.5, make a mark on it, and then we use our fingers to hold the measuring tape and subscribe to the edge of it. Show you how we cut it off inside the house. We got our exhaust fan right sitting right there sucking all the dust up, so we'll just position the saw and send the dust right up that tube, and then it won't fill the hole around the full of dust. I usually throw a piece of plywood or something, some scrap underneath there, so that when the saw blade goes through the stone it doesn't cut the floor. Sides. Now let's get it. I did make this edge a little bit crooked on purpose, trying to make it so it kind of fits with the stone. Again, we got the same situation on the side, so we'll do that same measurement the same way. Make sure it hangs over 1 inch. Just cut that distance off of this side, and then try to make this edge just a little bit wavy, like a natural stone edge would be. Framing one of these, basically what they did was 14.5 inches off the floor to the top of the plywood, and then we did our lath, and you can see these have no mortar underneath them, and it's about the perfect gap. So to the bottom of the fireplace extraordinaire, then that measurement would be 16 3/4 to the bottom of the bottom there. So we had the 14.5 plus the 2 1/4, 16 3/4. From the top of the plywood to the bottom of the fireplace extraordinaire is 2 1/4, and that fits perfect with the cultured stone size, because they're basically 1 inch and about 5/8 ish. Sometimes they're 3/4. Gives you the distance to get a mortar joint in there, have them tuck nice and tight to the bottom. So this piece of trim right here is just it's a fake face frame just to hold your stone to it. So that piece will come off, and then they'll put their nice looking finish plating around it with the doors hooked to it and all that good stuff. Well, the doors hinge off of here, but it's just a nice piece of trim that goes around the whole overall thing. When you buy one of these, it gives you the framing dimensions here. So is what it's showing is you need a 45.5 inch vertical opening, and it needs to be 26 inches minimum depth and 43 inches wide. And then right here on this face frame, basically right above this is what it's showing is you don't put drywall right here over this ever. It'll get the paper on the back of the drywall hot. So on this one, even above it, about 8 inches, we're in a piece of hardy backer just for safety's sake. Okay, we got these things all cut in place. They're just sitting there without any mortar under them. Cut the sides. And here we got inside the wood box all done up. I hung it out a little bit past so that it can hang out just barely past the stone. Okay, we got them mounted in place, all the mortars in underneath them. Okay, so we started down the stone, going up the side, got our hearthstones in place, got them covered, and now we got to do some border. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it about 5 inches wide. So I'm going to cut a bunch of stones, random sizes, 5 inches wide up the side of this, and then we're going to cut this off on an angle like that over the 5 inches, and then do a soldier course, and we're going to make those 8 inches wide. Got a nice rust spot on my 8 inch, but it'll be 8 inches tall. And the reason I go 5 and then 8 is to kind of help it proportionate with the size of the fireplace. Now if this fireplace was big, like a 5-footer, I'd probably make these a lot bigger. I'd probably make them 6 or 7 inches wide, and then do these vertical ones 10 to 12 inches tall or something like that. So with this size of fireplace, the 5 and the 8's working about right. So that's what we're going to do. And then right in the peak, we're going to do a keystone. That's going to be 10 inches tall. Okay, and selecting these stones for your border, you're going to want a stone that's nice and square on the edge, so that when it goes up against here like this, right here, then it sits nice and flat against there and looks good. So I nailed these boards to the floor, and I'm going to butt these against there like this, and it'll allow me to cut multiple stones at the same time. So I'll just get my 5 inch mark, cut all my 5s, then cut all my 8s. I ended up screwing this board to the, or nailing this board to the floor, so that these could just hit against it, and then the saw blade wouldn't just pull them out of square. That kind of keeps everything nice and square. Got all our 5-inch stones and all our 8-inch stones, and it's possible they're going to vary a little bit on the ends, but once we get them on the wall we can tune them on. Here is the keystone that's going to go right there. So we just picked out a rock out of the pile and got a nice keystone and got our 8 inches. You try not to get too many stones that are as big as the keystone. It'll still kind of take power over it because it's going to be taller, but try not to get ones that are too close to the same size as it. That one's a little bit close to it. If I feel like it looks odd, I'll just cut an inch or two off of that one just to make it not overpower the keystone. We got these in place, and right along this edge they're a little bit rough, but you can get away with doing that. Then right on the top, we just kind of keep this contour coming in the same plane coming across there, so that it jives with the 8-inch pieces coming in there, so they'll stand on their end coming across like this. I usually don't like to put a fat one at the top right here, because from up this side you'll see that cut edge. I have to have a pretty fat stone up here to get it to cover it up, so I usually don't like a fat one on the top right there. Okay, we got all the arcs done, and there's a couple of them that are just slightly off. I did end up cutting this keystone off. It looked too tall, so I try to keep everything proportionate. I think 2 inches is about perfect, taller than the other, so I cut it down to 10 inches. And then some of these are not coming in perfectly, so I'm gonna, as soon as it goes hard, trim those off and then make it look nice and straight in the meantime. So the way you decide how to put your stone is you get back at a 90-degree angle from it and hold it about where it looks nice and just shift it wherever it needs. So from right here, just the looks of it, it could be a series of things. I'll put a level on the top of it, but based on the looks of it, and then it looks like the right side of it needs trimmed off about 1/4 of an inch. But sometimes the tar paper lines or the lath lines can throw you off, so it's best to just get a level. This top edge trimmed off. It's all nice and uniform. Got that one flattened off on the top. It's all cut exactly how we want it. Got this edge going up. Making sure we're doing factory edges all the way up this side. Move their outlet boxes. See, you can see how this didn't quite come over far enough. We would have covered up the end, but we ended up having to do factory edge against the whole thing all the way down. Even though they put the board sticking out, it wasn't far enough. These edges kind of crooked a little bit on purpose, so it looks like natural stone. The whole idea is to get it to look as natural as possible. So we cut, whenever we're cutting an edge on a stone, we cut it crooked on purpose, like just twist your grinder blade back and forth so that it'll make a rugged edge, and then we smear mud on that end, and that way it hides it. So all throughout here, you can't even tell that they're cut edges. Looks like they were just naturally chipped stones. Some of these joints look pretty bad because there's a little bit of mud smeared on the stone, but if you get up close to it, once we clean that off, it's just a tight joint. So we don't have big old gaps. Like sometimes these look massive, but they're really not, just because the mud just kind of got on there a little bit. We just made the flat spot back in there just big enough for the outlet cover, and then the TV's gonna cover those up after that. So rods for the mantle, so the mantle's gonna drill a hole in the back of the mantle and slide it over those rods. They're just screwed onto the studs inside.